Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
I'm delighted to be joined by Barry Gardiner from Labour's front bench, sent out to put the great Corbyn position to the world.
No, the Labour position to the world.
So while we're talking about the Labour position to the world, this manifesto, which you brought with you as an aid memoir, it's been described as the most left-wing Labour manifesto since '83. But the thing which struck me is that the biggest commitment you're making is to abolish student fees. That will reward lots and lots of, frankly, quite well-off middle-class parents and their offspring. And at the same time, you're not ending the benefits freeze, which is, almost all serious analysts say, squeezing the living standards of the poorest more than anything else that this government has done. So, actually, this is a manifesto, a programme for the middle classes.
Well, let me take the 3 points that you've made. The first is that, yes, it's a manifesto that's also been described as the most popular set of policies that the Labour Party has come up with at a general election time for many years.
Well, we'll know that on June the 8th, but let's just go to the substantive points.
Then let's go to the issue of not school fees, student fees.
Student fees, yeah.
I think that...
With resources scarce, why £11 billion a year for something which, of course, it will be a benefit to poorer students, but a massive benefit for
You will know,
ones
Robert,
too.
that this year and last year we've seen the number of students applying from lower-waged families has actually gone down. And one of the things that we said right at the beginning when we introduced student fees was that we would monitor it so that we saw that it wasn't actually beginning to put people off. We've now seen that it is putting people off. And more than that, young people are now coming out because the coalition government tripled the fees. We're now seeing people coming out of university with £44,000 worth of debt on average each. They then come together and perhaps want to set up a home, start a family, and they find they can't do it. They're burdened with debt, they have low wages, and they feel that they're looking at the education that
politics is about choices.
No,
it is about choices, and some of that money, many people would say, would have been better spent committing to end the benefits freeze, or indeed putting more money into the health service. Let's be clear on the health service. You are not planning to spend more than the Tories, the IFS, for example, calculate.
That was your third point, and I will come to it.
Please.
But you also asked me why we were doing this.
Yeah.
And the reason that we're doing this is because young people look at what they've been asked to do. They say, I've done it. I studied hard, I got my A-levels, I went to university, I did everything that I was told to do, and I was told that that was the way to have a real stake in this society. And they come out, and at the end of it, they look round, and they've got 0 hours jobs, they've got low wages. They look and they say, I can't even afford to scrape together enough for a deposit on rented accommodation. And yet I've come out with a degree. And they feel it's unfair.
Sure.
And what the Labour Party is
we haven't got a lot of time. So let's get on to this issue of choices. Why not more money for the NHS?
Well, look,
why not end the benefits freeze?
Well, look, if you're talking about more money for the NHS, let's be absolutely clear. Including the 10 billion of capital, we are putting £37 billion into the NHS over the next Parliament. Compare that with the Conservatives, who are putting £8 billion over the lifetime of the Parliament.
Well, actually, no, 8 billion is current spending, 8 billion of additional... No. It is additional... That does not include their capital spending. No, right? I spoke to the Institute of Fiscal Studies about this, and they say there is not a cigarette paper between what you're promising and what the Tories are promising.
Well, no,
that's what they say.
Well, it's certainly not what I think you would accept, which is that we are putting much more money into the NHS every year over what the Conservatives are over the lifetime of this Parliament. And we've said where we're getting the money from, and they have not.
Come on, let's get back to the benefits freeze.
Let's get back to the benefits freeze.
Please.
OK, look, what we've done in terms of benefits is we've been very clear about benefits. We've said what we're keeping. We've said that we're keeping the winter fuel allowance, we're keeping the bus pass,
Sure.
we are going to keep the triple lock, because we believe that elderly people are entitled to security and dignity in old age. Over and above all of those things, what we've then said is, look, we are going to have £10 billion, that's £2 billion a year, and we're going to address the benefits freeze, and we're going to then...
No, that money is allocated. I've read your manifesto, and it does not address the benefits freeze, Barry. It certainly doesn't.
I'm sorry?
Honestly, I've read it in detail. It says you will look at one aspect of universal credit. It does not say... I had a conversation with Jeremy Corbyn about this. You know, you are not addressing the benefits freeze in there. There's a big difference between universal credit and the benefits freeze, and you are not addressing it.
The £10 billion is going to be allocated after we have done a review of benefits, and that...
Not what it says.
Sorry, well, but you asked me the question. It's after we do a review of the benefits...
You're changing the manifesto on air. Is that what you're doing?
No, I'm not.
Actually, that's not what it says.
Sorry, you know very well that, Jeremy, you asked the question at the launch. You asked this precise question at the launch. Jeremy said that, of course, we want to address the benefits freeze. The way that we are doing that is through the review that we are having when we come into government, the review that we have, and there's £10 billion there, which has not been fully allocated, which will be distributed after we've had that review.
Barry Gardiner, we'll talk more about this in the days and weeks ahead, I'm sure. Thanks so much for joining me. And now let's have a chat with Jess and Nicholas about what we've just heard. So can I just ask you, Jess, about this issue of priorities? Is the Labour front bench's Jeremy Corbyn right to make his biggest commitment the abolition of student fees, in your view? Given you know, that many would say, you know, there is more money going into schools, there is more money going into the health service, but should they have, for example, ended the benefits freeze?
It wouldn't have been my priority.
What's that, student fees?
Yeah, it wouldn't have been my priority. However, I don't think it is a bad thing to have as your priority. And this idea that it's a really middle-class thing, the idea of education for all is something that most people really like. And obviously, I'm spending an awful lot of time with a lot of students at the moment because there's literally hundreds of them out campaigning with me. And I was a bit like, oh, is it the right way to go? And they genuinely feel like they are the sort of forgotten generation. When I left university, under a Labour government, I had every chance of buying a house, and I bought a house when I was 22. There is literally no chance for these people. They feel like they are sort of lost in a world with £40,000 worth of debt, and that they can't then become just ordinary working families.
So a couple of other points. I mean, lots of your colleagues have said to me that when they bang on Labour doors, people say they'd vote for you if it weren't for Jeremy Corbyn. Is any of that changing?
No, that does definitely still happen. It's happening more at the moment because our opponents are obviously pushing it. I mean, my opponent is a Liberal Democrat, and they seem to be a busted flush to me.
But Jeremy Corbyn, in your constituency, is still a negative for you.
Only when they have it really put. I think that the general media sort of onslaught over Jeremy Corbyn over the past year or so had.
Is it the fault of the media, or is it the fault
no, I don't think it's the fault of the media. I think that he made some terrible, unforced errors, and the media picks up on it, and the media also gives him a hard time. They both exist.
And can I just ask you one final thing? Keir Starmer said, actually in The Guardian the other day, that for him what really matters is that you win more seats. Now, the noises coming out of Jeremy Corbyn's group is that what matters is that the vote share is better than last time. What for you counts as a success or failure in the general election?
An increased vote share is about as good as a chocolate fireguard. So
Keir's right that it's a failure unless you pick up more seats than last time.
I can't help the people I am desperate to help. I cannot do the things I am desperate to do just because I stacked up a load of votes in Islington North.
OK. Well, that's pretty clear. Thank you so much,